Welcome back. I'd like for us to cover the second lesson in topic one, which deals with the development of feudalism and the manor economy. So, three things that you need to focus on as you look at this lesson. Number one, what is feudalism? How is it a political and social system? How was it set up? How was it structured? You're to compare feudalism with the third point, which is manorialism, the economic system. How did this affect the lives of the nobility and the people that work for them, the peasants? We're also going to summarize how knights and nobles lived, the stark differences between different social groups in Europe, Western Europe during the Middle Ages. So these are our objectives and overviews. Um, Feudalism is a governmental system. It is a political system. It's a government that is based on land ownership that is given in return for personal military service. So a person receives land that they can use to support themselves. They govern this land in the name of another person called a lord. And in return for that land, they give that lord so many days of military service, usually about 30 days a year. So it is a system between a social superior, who is the lord, and the social inferior, who is the vassal. But understand that this system is within the upper classes. Only about 2% of the people in Europe would have been involved with this. Okay, so it doesn't involve anybody under the nobility. So the lord is the person in authority that grants the land. The vassal receives that land from the lord. They um, swear fealty, they swear loyalty to their lord, and then the vassal is given the land, which is called a fief. Sometimes it's called a feud. That's where the name feudalism comes from. This piece of land would be large enough to have at least one farm that could support the vassal and his family, and support him enough to where he can fight as a mounted soldier. So he has to have armor. He has to have a horse. He has to have people that can support him while he is doing this military service. So the land was at least big enough. The fief was big enough for at least one farm called a manor. There was a contract. It wasn't necessarily something that was signed, but there definitely was this arrangement that the vassal had obligations to the Lord. He had to pay certain fees. Like, for example, if he was getting married, the Lord had to give him permission to marry, and a fee had to be paid for that. So there were these types of things. The Lord was obligated to protect the vassal, to back them up if they needed it. The vassal had to serve for his Lord at specified times. So there was an agreement that was there. And the term knight, which is used in the Middle Ages, specifically refers to a vassal that fights on horseback. It specifically refers to one of the lower levels of this system. So they would have been landowners, they would have been vassals, but they would basically have served as the foot soldiers for the nobility. Um, the concept of tournaments, these competitions between knights to see who is the best knight, who can knock the guy off the horse, that sort of thing. The word tournament developed around that type of activity. And there also was a code that governed these people's behavior called the Code of Chivalry. So knights had to exhibit certain characteristics. They were supposed to abide by these rules. They didn't always do that, but that was the plan anyway. Uh, the economic system that governed this time period was called manorialism. A manor is a farm. Every fief had at least one manor on it. And this was designed to be a self sufficient form of an economy. The manor would produce enough food to feed the people on the manor. All activities on the manor would be geared towards supporting the Lord and producing for his needs. But there wasn't necessarily a lot of outside trade. So everything was produced locally. Everything was made on site, basically. So most people in this time period went no more than 10, 20 miles from where they were born. Um, on the manor, on this farm, most of the people who worked would be called peasants. The vast majority of these peasants, these farm workers, would be serfs. These are people that are semi free. They can't leave the land. They belong to the land. They're part of the property, just like a barn or a well is a part of the property, these people came with that property. So they couldn't be sold off of it, but they also owed the Lord who controlled the land so many days of service, usually about 3 days of service per week. So about half the time that they were working, they had to work in the Lord's fields, and then they had to take care of their own stuff in their own fields. So serfs are agricultural workers who are semi-free. They also had obligations as well. They had to pay the Lord so much for grain that was ground. They had to go to the Lord's mill to do that. They had to go to the Lord's blacksmith if they need something repaired. If they wanted to marry, they had to have the Lord's permission. They had to pay for that. If someone died and people wanted to inherit from the person that died, the family would have to pay a fee to do that. So there always was something. Usually it wasn't money, because by this point, money had pretty much disappeared. It was a very local barter economy. So people had to pay their lord in terms of either service or agricultural products. So this was the basic form of life that most people in Western Europe had for several hundred years. One of your activities is to not only define what these two things are in your chart, but also to create a pyramid that shows the social structure that existed in the Middle Ages. So as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in class or message me. And I will be back with lesson 3 shortly. Thank you.